Just a reminder to our Speculating Wildly About Crime listeners, this is for entertainment purposes only and solely the thoughts and opinions of our team. We do invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Speculating Wildly About Crime. I'm Jamie.
I'm Kristy.
And we have a special treat for you guys today. We're actually not going to speculate. Kristy, if you all haven't known what kind of favorite cases, if you haven't speculated what Kristy's favorite cases, it's serial killers. So, welcome to your first SWAC Gets Serial. And Kristy is going to be covering the case of Ed Gein.
Yay, Eddie! The Butcher of Plainfield. So I wanted to do this one because Netflix has the new show that came out, Monster, the Ed Gein Story. I don't know if anybody's watched it. If they have, it's not very accurate. So I'm going to let you know what's really up with it and what is the true story of Ed Gein. Yes. So let's start with Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. His mother, Augusta, was born in Germany and immigrated to Wisconsin. And then his father, George Gein, was actually orphaned. So in 1879, George was 3. His parents and older sister took a wagon ride into town to run some errands, and they had a farm in La Crosse. So La Crosse is on the western side of the state by the Mississippi River. And they were actually caught in a flash flood on the Mississippi River, and all 3 of them drowned. So George, he was only 3. He was actually raised by some strict paternal grandparents who lived on a nearby farm. And he lived with them until his early 20s. And then he moved to La Crosse and he worked many odd jobs. He would sell insurance. He worked for the railroads. Wasn't a very motivated person, should we say.
I was just going to give him credit. I was going to say he was a man of many talents, but not really.
Yeah, he tried. He worked at like a tannery for a while and he drank a lot, drank pretty much what he earned. And he did not think highly of himself. He felt sorry for himself a lot because he lost his parents and his sister, and he didn't come from a very loving home either. So
that's rough. I mean, that's a tough life to see pretty much your whole family wash away in the river.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, he was just a sad little boy and a sad younger man. I believe when he worked at the tannery, he worked with Augusta, her brother, and that is how he met Augusta. And she was a determined and dominant woman, and she was very religious. Everything was church and making a good life for herself.
So crazy to me how we're going to go from church to serial killer.
Yep. When she met George, he was also of the Lutheran faith, but he was not what you would call a practicing Lutheran. But that attracted her to him. And just a lot of men weren't really interested in her. It's not that she wasn't attractive or anything. It was just, she was just a bold and domineering woman. And she came from a large family. George didn't. So that probably was like, oh, I want to be part of a larger family. I don't really have a family. Maybe that was one reason why he decided to marry her in December of 1899. And George was 24 and Augusta was 19. And shortly after they got married, they had Henry in January of 1902. And then Ed was born in 1906. And when the 2 boys were born, they actually opened up a grocery store in La Crosse. And George was running the store, not doing the best job. They had some money trouble. He, not the great businessman that he wanted to be. So Augusta decided, well, I'm going to take over the business. You can be a clerk. And actually, she ended up kind of turning the business around, and they were actually profitable. But she didn't really like living in La Crosse because it was too city. She wanted something rural. She didn't like to be in a city with all these harlots, she called them. So loose women. She wanted to take her family and move to a farm somewhere. So in 1913, she picked up her family and they moved to a farm in Camp Douglas, which Camp Douglas was about 45 minutes outside of La Crosse. They didn't live there very long. I don't know why. I couldn't really find anything on what happened, but they were there less than a year. And then they moved to a 195-acre farm in Plainfield. They had livestock, they had pigs. It seemed like they did different things. It wasn't a very profitable farm, but they had enough to pay their bills and make an okay living. So when they got there, it's Plainfield. So Plainfield at that time had about 600 people in the town. So it was small. There's not a lot there. And actually, Plainfield, Washera County in general, is just the very sandy, has very sandy land. There's only certain crops that grow there. A lot of potatoes and I think onions. So they're there for a few years. Ed, not doing the best in school. He's an okay student, but yeah, not the best. He's average. He also didn't have a lot of friends. He had the growth on his eye that made him look like he had a lazy eye. Some of the kids picked on him for that. And a lot of kids thought he was weird because sometimes he would like laugh to himself sitting at his desk. And when he actually did make a friend, he would usually go home and tell his mom that he made a new friend and he'd get all excited. And she would say, "You cannot talk to that boy. His mom is a harlot and I don't want you seeing him. You need to not hang out with him anymore.
You
I'm your friend."
suck, Augusta.
Yeah. So she did not encourage him to have any friends. Now, Henry really wasn't under his mom's control like Ed was. When she had kids, she actually wanted girls. She got two boys. So by the time she had Ed, I'm going to take him under my wing and he's going to grow up to be perfect. And she didn't really have too much of a relationship with Henry like she did with Ed. So Ed did his own thing. She was still on both of them, like, you don't need to be with women. Sex is a sin. Women are terrible. They're all a bunch of whores, harlots.
I wonder
Um,
why she wanted a daughter so bad then, just to make sure she could create the one and only non-harlot.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. She was just very controlling mom. She didn't even like to go to the churches in Plainfield because she didn't feel like they were up to her standards. So she taught her sons religion at home and read the Bible verses to them. They would have to sit in front of her and she would recite Bible verses to them and teach them all about the right and wrong of life. And she was cruel to George, and George just drank all day. He was just a big alcoholic. He didn't want to be around. And he would get angry and mad and he would beat the boys because he would be drunk and he would take whatever she laid on him out on his two sons. And it was just a very toxic household. So Ed only went to school till the 8th grade. And then once he was out of school, he would just work on the farm. So he was even more isolated than when he was in school. So during that time, his bond with his mom grew closer. He really started coming to her with everything because that was his only person. And she just probably loved it. He just worships me. And unfortunately, that is not healthy.
I was gonna say, what a weird dynamic.
Yeah. And then in 1937, George's health started to decline. All the years of drinking and just probably not caring, and just mental capacity is probably just going down. And so by 1940, he passed away. it wasn't that big of a loss to them because they weren't close with their dad, especially Ed. He's like, oh, okay, I was closer with my mom. It's kind of sad. So they just kind of did their thing, worked on the farm. And then a few years later, Henry wanted to go out on his own. And I guess there was a woman he was seeing and trying to hide from Augusta. And I think she knew about it, but didn't like it. And he was trying to tell Ed, you need to not be so close to mom. You need to break off and become your own person. He's like, it's not good for you. And Ed didn't listen. He was just like, nope, I love her. I don't see why you don't worship the ground she walks on like I do.
I'm Team Henry.
Yeah. But shortly after that, on May 16th, 1944, they had a brush fire at the property, the farm. And Henry and Ed were both dealing with the fire. Ed said he lost sight of Henry and he sent for a search party. So he had the deputy sheriff and a few other people come help him look, and they finally found Henry. And actually, Ed pretty much led the search party right to the area where Henry was. And
I don't know where he is, but just follow
but
me.
I can't
I don't know
find
what'll
him.
happen.
You gotta help me find him. Wait, let's look over here. And sure enough, they found him. And Deputy Sheriff Frank Engel even asked him, he's like, well, I thought you didn't know where he was, but you kind of took us right to his body. And then Ed said, funny how that works.
Creepy.
It is creepy. So when they found Henry, he really wasn't burnt. His clothes weren't burnt, but he was clearly dead. They did see he had some bruising on the back of his head, but when he went to get his autopsy, they ruled his death asphyxiation by smoke inhalation. So they ruled his death an accident.
He died from smoke inhalation, but he had no burns on him at all.
He had no burns and he had that bruising on the back of his head. They just thought, well, he could have just became unconscious with the smoke and fell down and hit his head. Okay. And a lot of people to this day still speculate that Ed was the one that killed his brother. And from what it sounds like, it kind of sounds like it was.
Yeah.
And that was one thing too in the Monster show on Netflix. They totally are like, oh yeah, he killed his brother and made it seem like he did. But it was just a speculation. No one ever proved that it was Ed.
They didn't even investigate it, right?
No, they didn't even investigate it. So
is the Monster show more, I didn't watch it yet. Is it more like a documentary or is it kind of like a mini series?
It's like a mini series. It's like a scripted show.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not good at all.
So that's the first thing they got wrong is they said he definitely killed the brother when we don't.
Oh no, the first thing they got wrong was when they were showing him in ladies' underwear and ladies' garments, choking himself, standing on a chair, doing a BTK type thing. And then Augusta walks in and is like, what are you doing? Get that off. Which from everything I've seen, everything I've read over the years, I've never heard anything like that. They're just exaggerating profusely. But it's more of a drama series. There's so many things that were wrong. Just a funny story. One of my coworkers, we both talk about Ed Gein. We're kind of weird that way. But when it came out, I didn't watch it yet. And she came up to me. She's like, so did you watch the show? And I was like, no, I haven't yet. She's like, don't. It's awful. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, it's so bad. And I was just pissed off. I was like, okay. So I never did. But then when I decided to do the podcast about Ed Gein, I'm like, well, I got to watch it. So I watched like a half the episode. I'm like, nope, I can't do it. It's so bad. If you don't know the story, you might think it's good. But when you know the story, you're from the area, it's a little disturbing. It's already a bad story, and they're making it 10 times worse.
It's like the Dahmer one that's on Netflix too, right?
Yeah. But even I think the Dahmer one was better.
More realistic, yeah.
A little bit more realistic. This one was so like just, he had a girlfriend and I'm like, what? He didn't have a girlfriend. So that's why I'm like, I gotta do Ed Gein. We gotta hear the real story. So after Henry died, then he had Mom all to himself. He was like, this is great. Mom and I on the farm. And Augusta was a hardworking woman. She did a lot of the farm work and she kept the house clean and tidy. I don't even know how she got everything done in a day, but plus read the Bible. Yeah. But she did it. So shortly after Henry's death, Augusta fell ill. So Ed took her to the Wild Rose Hospital. So Wild Rose is the town just east of Plainfield. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Wild Rose Hospital, but it's like a clinic. When they were at the hospital, that's when they found out she suffered from a stroke. So she was partially paralyzed. After spending some time in the hospital, Ed took her home and fed her and laid in bed with her and caressed her hair. Just, yeah, he was,
They
he was like,
spooning?
I don't know. They showed that in the show, but I'm who knows? Maybe they did. But yeah, he had to take care of her and just to show her how much he loved her. Yeah, it was a little weird. So after like not even a year, she started getting better because she's probably like, this kid needs to get off my fucking bed and I need to get better. So she started like walking and talking again. And I mean, still, she wasn't 100%, but she was able enough to do a few things around the house and or whatever. And then in mid-December, she told Ed that we need to go over to the neighbor's house and purchase straw for the farm. It's already winter at that point. And I guess the farmer owed them money or whatever, and they had to buy some more straw for the winter and whatever. So they hopped in the truck and went over to Smith's house. And trigger warning, there's some animal cruelty here. So when they got to the farm, Smith was outside and he was beating a puppy. And he's pretty much beating this puppy to death. So they're like sitting there waiting to talk to him. And this poor puppy's yelling and yelping. And a woman runs out of the Smith's house and starts yelling at him, at Smith, saying, leave the puppy alone, just don't hurt him. And she was all upset and they were arguing. And well, it was then that his mom wasn't feeling well again. And he took her back to the hospital and she suffered another stroke.
Oh.
So that whole incident just upset her. And a few days in the hospital, she ended up dying on December 29th of 1945. She was 67 years old. So within 5 years, he lost his dad, his brother, and his mother.
Oh,
yeah.
George Jr.
Yeah. So it was like a really traumatic thing for him, obviously. And when he ended up like being in the mental institution, he would tell the doctors that that incident killed his mom. Just going to that farm and whatever happened killed his mom. And the doctors were like, oh, was it because he was beating the puppy? And he's like, no, it was because she was upset because Smith's girlfriend came out of the house that day and they were not married. And she had no business being in that house. She was a harlot and she was a big whore. They're not married. She didn't care about the puppy. She cared that the woman was staying with Smith in the house when they weren't married.
I cannot wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Fuck this dying dog. I'm mad at this harlot coming out of the house.
Yeah. Nice lady, huh? What a fucking cunt.
Augusta should have lived in a damn bubble, is where she should have lived.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you what a horrible person she was. Out of all the things to upset her that day.
So do you think, because I wonder, like, how did Ed know that? Did she make a big scene while she was there? Do you think she was saying it at the hospital?
Yeah, she was upset. And I can't believe she had the gall to even come outside when they're not married. And
Can't believe she didn't set on fire when she came outside.
Right. So yeah, it was a very emotional thing for her to see that. And it caused her to have another stroke. When she died, they had a small thing in the paper for her. Like, actually, George Gein had a bigger section in the paper for his obituary than Augusta did, because everybody was just kind of like, bye, bitch. No one really cared because she wasn't well liked. Go figure.
Weird.
Weird. People like George more. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Just should I keep rolling?
I did just think of, we're kind of past it now, but does Henry's girlfriend ever resurface after he died?
No, I never heard anything more about that. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. They didn't really touch much on his girlfriend. They just said he was in a relationship. But you know what? Good for Henry, because I would want to get the fuck out of that house too. So, yeah, this was quite the turning point. Now, Ed is all alone on this 195-acre farm. He's just kind of beside himself. Unfortunately, everything starts to get run down. He does odd jobs. He was kind of like the handyman around town, because people thought he was okay. He wasn't a disliked person. They were just kind of like, oh, odd Eddie. It's a little odd.
Weird.
And he even did babysitting to some of the town's children. And yeah, I know a lot of people know this, but yeah, he liked kids. He liked being around kids, and he would like do snowball fights with them in the winter. He was actually really good with kids.
Huh. If you were babysat by Ed Gein, can you please write in to
So,
swatpod@gmail.com?
well, here's the thing. So when I was telling my sister about this, who lives in Washington County, I was telling her, like, yeah, I'm going to do Ed Gein for the show. And she said, oh, yeah, a lot of people up here, there's always someone who knows someone who knows him or knew. She lives not far from Plainfield. And actually, my parents lived in Hancock, which is just south of Plainfield. I'm like, oh, who do you know? She's like, well, I work with a woman, and her dad used to get babysat by Ed Gein. And I'm like, oh, I said, oh, do you know her well? Would she maybe, if I ask her a few questions, do you think she would talk to me? And she goes, no one talks about it. Like, people know, like, they'll bring it up, but no one will talk about it. It's just, people are just done with being the town where Ed Gein lived. They want to move on. And I said, I get it. That's interesting, but I get it. So, yeah, highly unlikely anybody's going to reach out.
If I got babysat by Ed Gein, I would tell everybody that I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I told you this story, but one of my close friends, the Dahmer thing came out. And she said something about, oh, yeah, well, my dad was a witness at the trial. And I'm like, what? What? She's like, oh, yeah, they used to clean his carpets. They had a carpet cleaning business.
Oh my God. And you never smelled that?
And they cleaned his, well, and it depends on when. I don't know when they cleaned his. And I said, what? And you never told me this? She's like, I don't know. It just never came up till now.
I worked with a girl that Jeffrey Dahmer would buy them penny candy. They'd walk up to the gas station and he would be there, and they'd be like, go pick out a couple pieces of candy. And then on the news, the daughter saw it, and I think she was like 10 at the time. And she looked at the TV and she looked at her mom and she did it again. And her mom's like, yep, that's him.
Yeah. So probably not going to have anybody talk to us, unfortunately, just because people want to move on. And I don't blame them. It's a small town. So at this time, Eddie's doing his odd jobs. He's babysitting for kids. The house is becoming a big dilapidated mess. The kids in town are actually like, ooh, that's the haunted Gein house. They would run past when they would be walking home from school because they didn't want the ghosts to get them, doing shit like that. And at that time, Ed starts reading some anatomy books and magazines about shrunken heads and Nazis and cannibals. And because he was a very avid reader, a lot of people like, you think Ed Gein, you think, oh, he must have been really slow and dumb. He wasn't that dumb.
Serial killers have to have some level of intelligence because otherwise they wouldn't get away with it multiple times.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy, super smart.
Super smart. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is with disappearances and killings is the Mary Hogan disappearance, which was December 8th of 1954. So she was a tavern owner in a town north of Plainfield called Pine Grove, I believe. And Eddie would go to the tavern and hang out there and get a coffee. And she was like Augusta. She was a German immigrant. She had the sharp tongue, kind of like a bold woman. But it sounds like she was a good business owner. People liked her. She had a mysterious past. Like some people say she was from Chicago and she had some ties to the mob. So December 8th, she disappeared. All they found was like a blood splatter. Nothing else came of it. And
No body, no nothing.
no body, no nothing. Yeah, so with her like mysterious past and everything, she didn't have a lot of family around. People just thought, oh, maybe the mob came to get her. It was still like an open case, but it wasn't like they did something about it, like looking. It was just kind of like, all right, we'll have to keep an eye out. And
Plainfield Police going on my shit list.
actually, that wasn't technically Plainfield. It was a town north of Plainfield. And you have to think too, a lot of these places don't have a police force. They have a deputy sheriff that works part-time and has a full-time job, and
split among 5 cities or a whole county, or
they don't have a police force. So they don't have a detectives and stuff like that. And some of these positions are like volunteer. You think like firefighters, volunteer. Like all the towns around me, volunteer.
yeah.
Like they don't get paid. If they do, it's very minimal. So you have to think too, they probably investigated, did as much as they could, and they're like, okay,
No more resources to put on this. Yeah.
there's no other thing we can do to progress this. Yeah. So Eddie just kept doing his thing, and it wasn't until November 16th of 1975, which was opening day of deer hunting season, which is like a tradition for many people in Wisconsin. It's
a damn national holiday there is what it is.
It is. It's 10 days or 9 days, I don't know. Yeah, of just men out there trying to get their deer. And I would imagine in the 50s it was probably more prevalent because that was food for people.
Right.
Now it's more of like a trophy. Although I do like the sausage. Venison sausage is very good. So at that time, the town is desolate. Everybody's out deer hunting. Ed went to the local hardware store that was operated by Bernice Warden and her son Frank. Ed knew Bernice would be there alone because of a conversation he had with Frank the day before. While visiting the store, he asked Frank if he would be deer hunting the next day. And like most of the men in the town, he said, yeah, I'm going out. And because Ed actually did not hunt deer, he did not like to hunt big animals. He only hunted squirrel and rabbit. Fun fact. Yeah. So Ed came in that morning and he bought some antifreeze from Bernice and he took it back to his vehicle. Then he came back in the store and he's like, hey, I'm interested in purchasing a new rifle. He's like, can I take a look at that rifle? And she's like, sure. And she gave Ed the rifle and she turned around to kind of look at the town and just how scarce it was with all the deer hunters being gone. And that is when Ed took out a bullet and put it in the rifle. And then he proceeded to shoot Bernice in the back of the head. So if she didn't die instantly, she probably died almost minutes after. So at that time, he took the warden's store truck and loaded her in the truck, took her to, I believe he took her to the farm, and then he dropped off the truck like miles away. And then he took his car, loaded her in his car, and then took the car to the farm, I believe. He left the truck, walked back to the car, had to walk like 6 miles to get the car. And then he went, loaded her in the truck, and then took her home.
I wonder why take the truck was it easier to get her in there or?
It was in the back of the building.
Oh,
So
got it.
he led her through the back because he dragged her body through the back.
Got it.
Because I think it's like street parking. So
Mm-hmm.
otherwise he was probably right in front. He didn't want anybody to see him.
It's not a good look to drag a body in the front of Main Street.
No. And there was the owner of the local gas station saw the truck leave about 9:30. He's like, oh, there goes the warden's truck. I wonder where that's going. And he didn't really think much of it. So he locked everything up, left the lights on. And then later that day, Bernice's son gets back into town, takes his deer to the gas station because the guy also did the taxidermy or whatever with the deer. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw your mom's your truck leaving at like 9:30 this morning. And he's like, why would my mom be going somewhere? That's weird. There's no one around. So, and he noticed like it was locked, but the lights are on. He's like, this is weird. So he goes in and sees that there's like blood stains across the floor. So Frank Warden is also the deputy sheriff. He's been deputy sheriff of Plainfield for just over a year, which is a good thing because right away he's like, there's something wrong. There's blood all over. My mom's not here. So he calls Sheriff Art Schlee of the Watoma County Sheriff's Department to come and assist him. So Sheriff Schlee comes to the store, and that's when Frank found the receipt for the antifreeze that was made out to Ed. And he
because they were handwritten.
Yeah, they were like handwritten.
This was the 70s, so it was a small town.
This was
so
50s.
They didn't have
50s.
Oh, 50s. Okay.
So he's like, even if it didn't have Ed's name on it, he was probably like, oh, he bought antifreeze. Ed said he was coming back to buy antifreeze. So right then he's like, we need to go see if this is Ed. Like, he knows something. They were all freaked out. So Sheriff Schlee called his chief deputy, Arnie Fritz, to go with him to the hardware store because he's like, something's going on. We need to get there. Bernice Warden's missing. And when they get to the store, that's when Frank's like, hey, there's this receipt that I found. I think it might be Ed Gein. You need to find him because I think he has something to do with the disappearance. Chief Deputy Fritz, he's like, well, we need to call more people. So they ended up calling the town of Wild Rose, sheriffs from Portage, Adams, and Marquette counties to come. And yeah, so they called everybody because they're like, something's wrong. This woman's missing. There's blood everywhere. We think it might be Crazy Eddie. So
this flashback to shitters full.
At Cousin Eddie. So that is when they had two officers, Officer Dan Chase and Deputy Polk Spees. They were dispatched to find Ed. And so they went to his house to see if he was there, and he was not there. But it was kind of known around town that sometimes he would go over to the neighbor's house, the Hills, and have dinner and hang out. They had kids, so he probably babysat for them too. They're like, okay, well, we need to go over to the Hills and see if he's over there. So the Hills also have this little grocery store on their property. So when they get to their property, they go in the grocery store, and Arlene Hill was in there working, and he's like, have you seen Ed Gein? And she's like, yeah. So right before this, the Hills' son-in-law bursts into the house and is like, hey, something's going on at the hardware store. There's police everywhere. No one knows what's going on. No one can find Bernice Warden. He's all freaked out. And so one of the sons asked Ed, hey, can you take me to town? Let's go check it out. And Ed's like, yeah, hop in my car. So they're sitting in the car, letting it warm up. And so the two officers come and ask Arlene Hill, hey, have you seen Ed? She's like, yeah, he's right there in my driveway with my son. They should be leaving any second. They're going to go to the hardware store and see what's going on. The officer and deputy is like, oh, okay, well, let's go check this out. So they go and question him, like, hey, Ed, what were you doing today? And he tells a story, and they're asking him all these questions, and they're like, ask him again. So what were you doing earlier today? He tells them a completely different story, just weird things. Like, your stories aren't the same. Where are you going? What were you doing? And then he's like, well, I'm being framed. And they're like, what do you mean? What are you being framed for? And he's like, well, Mrs. Warden. He's like, what about her? He's like, well, ain't she dead? Well, they're like, okay, I think you're coming with us, buddy, because we never said she was dead.
Eddie, you told on yourself.
You did. So they're like, okay, well, you're coming with us. So we're going to take you to the Washoe County Courthouse, put you in jail, and figure out what's going on here. So at that time, they take him to Washoe County. So Sheriff Schlee and Captain Schofischer, they went to Ed's house because they're like, we got to see if Bernice is there, because they're at this time they're still thinking she might still be alive. It's 8 o'clock at night. They're like, we need to go find out what's going on, and we got to think. So it's 8 o'clock, mid-November. The Ed Gein farmhouse does not have any electricity. Actually, there's no electricity on the farm. So they're coming up to a dilapidated farmhouse
In the dark and
in the
cold.
dark, cold. It's probably a little scary. And you know how when you go up north, so we say in Wisconsin, you go up north, there's a lot of like older farm homes. And sometimes you're like, oh, that's an old looking farmhouse. And all of a sudden you see a car and, ooh, someone lives there. Weird. It's just like scary.
Creepy.
There's some scary, creepy homes. So I can only imagine. So they're pulling up to the Gein farmhouse. They try all the doors and all of them are locked. So they actually tried the summer kitchen. They were able to get the door open. So I don't know if anybody knows what a summer kitchen is, but it's like a small building that's near the house, but kind of detached from the house, where like in the summer, they have a stove in it. Usually it's just like a little kitchens where they cook in there. So the house doesn't heat up, because this is before air conditioning and all that.
Hang on, before you get to that, you said the non-electricity, did they grow up that way, or did Ed just let it go that bad?
I don't think it ever had electricity.
What? That's crazy. All right, so yeah, that's a crazy scene that you said. So these officers are going up to this dilapidated house.
So they get into the summer kitchen and they're both looking around, and that's when Sheriff Schlee like kind of steps back, and they just have these little flashlights. So they're looking around and he hits something and he turns around, and that's when he sees Bernice Warden's body hanging from the rafters. She was decapitated, gutted, and yeah.
Like she was a deer.
Like she was a deer. So pretty much both men see it. They run outside and vomit into the snow, which I would have too.
Yeah.
Because I can't even imagine what that looked like or even smelled like. And so at this point, they radioed for more backup. And they're like, we found Bernice. You need to come. We need more people to help. That's when they go in, they get into the main part, the main house at this point. And that is when the horrors begin and they find all the fun stuff. Do you know of any stories of what they found?
I know that there was a lampshade made out of human skin, right?
Yep. Yep. So this is what they all found. They found the severed head of Mary Hogan, the tavern owner. They found whole human bones and fragments scattered throughout the house. There was organs, including a human heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's potbelly stove, and organs were stored in jars. They found 10 female skulls with the top sewn off, and that is what he used for soup bowls.
Bowls?
Yeah. Yeah, he used the top of the skulls for bowls.
Was he also eating the organs that they were in front of his stove?
He says no. He's always said no to that, but it's been speculated. that he was a cannibal, because he did read books and magazines about cannibalization, but he never admitted to it and it was never proven. So I can't say for sure if he did or not. And then he made some handcrafted items. He had a woman's suit or a skin suit that was made from skin of a female torso and legs, including a corset and leggings. And that's kind of where they got the Buffalo Bill, Silence of the Lambs. That was where they got that idea from. And
Did
then
he
had
wear it?
Yeah, he would wear it. Yeah, he did admit to that. And then he had masks made from skin of a face, and that's where they got the leather face from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And this one I always felt like was just the craziest. A belt made from female nipples. That's just crazy to me.
So
Like, what?
it's weird,
What?
but it's oddly artistic.
Yeah, that one just blows my mind. And then he found a box of noses and a pair of lips used as a window shade drawstring, and then 9 vulvas in a shoebox. And I guess some of them were like painted
Like
and like
arts and
salted.
crafts on the
Yeah.
vault.
Yeah. And he did get into that and said he painted them to make them like look better, and because they were starting to get bad,
Dead?
like dead. So he tried to make them more lifelike. Here, I'm going to paint them. So it was, yeah, a little odd. And then they also found the household items, the chairs upholstered with human skin, the lampshade made out of human skin and face, the bowls from human skulls, and a wastebasket made from human skin. And it was just disgusting. It was crap everywhere.
Traumatizing.
It was like a hoarder house that you could barely walk, just crap everywhere. He only lived in 3 rooms of the house.
How could he stand the smell to even stay in there though? Like,
Yeah, right. He didn't really go upstairs at all. He just stayed downstairs. Yeah, and he just lived in this mess. And then that's when they found the boarded up rooms. Can you imagine? So they take down the boards on this door, and it was actually Augusta's room. So they walk inside. Everything's neat in its place. There's no clutter, no nothing. It's dusty, but he left everything the way she had it when she died. So it was her bedroom, and then she had like a sitting area where she would always sit and probably read the Bible. Yeah. And it was just real ominous because they were kind of freaked out.
And then
like
boarded up like that, you would expect to find like something crazy in there. And instead it's just like, oh, we're like going back in time.
Yeah, we're going back in time. This isn't even the same house, which was just creepy. Like he didn't want anybody to go in there. It was just a very weird thing to see after digging through piles of garbage and finding, vulvas
In a box.
in a box. Yeah. So even when Sheriff Schley got back to the courthouse, so him and his family lived at the courthouse at that time. It's actually very common. So when he got back there, he found Ed and was like shaking him and yelling at him. And what did you do? What did you do? He was just so irate, and everybody was like trying to pull him off Ed. And he was so traumatized. Within 24 hours, everybody knew what was going on. And all over Wisconsin, Chicago, all these reporters were coming and staying in hotels and bombarding Washera County with questions and trying to get a look at Ed Gein. And when they started questioning him, and he really didn't say much at first, but he did kind of let them know that he was robbing graves, because they were like, where did you get these body parts? How many people did you kill? And he said, well, they're from graves. And that's when they found out like how sick he was.
Do you think he watched like the obituary section? Because
He did.
you got to be pretty careful about what graves you're digging up to get the skin.
Because he only wanted to do fresh graves. He didn't want, because there was a couple times where he did try to dig up a grave, and it was someone who was like more decomposed, and he couldn't do it because he said it stunk too bad.
So
So
he was reading the obituaries and getting the fresh graves.
getting the fresh graves. He pretty much at that time told authorities that he had robbed 9 graves at this point. He was honest with them at that point. So he pretty much stayed in the Westshore County jail for a week because it took him a couple days to get an attorney. And then once he got an attorney, which was William Belter, this is, you think, the 50s. No one's ever heard of anything like this before.
Right.
They didn't even have serial killers at this point. Everybody pretty much agreed, yeah, he is not sane. So on November 23rd, he went and was committed to the Central State Hospital for 30 days for observation. And at that point, they did all the testing and tried to get more information from him, like why he did that. He talked about his mom a lot. And then that's when they kind of realized he was schizophrenic, undiagnosed. So, yeah, he had a lot of issues. And if you think about it, he was living alone for 10, 13 years, didn't have a lot of people in his life, already had mommy issues. And it's sad because you see like the farmhouse that Augusta took care of. She was a pretty hardworking person, and it just dilapidated it took 10 years to just run down. And no one.
It's like mental health does that to you, you know?
Yeah. And at that point, the 50s, it wasn't like mental health wasn't a thing. So no one was ever like, hey, we should go check on Eddie. You know, his farmhouse is looking pretty damn sad. Like maybe see how his animals are doing. They were just like, oh, freaking Eddie. Yeah, poor Eddie. So I think of that. He was just a freaking wreck, you know. And
crying for help for like silently though.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder when he babysat, I imagine the kids weren't coming over to the house.
No. I guess there was one of the Hill boys did go over to his house and said that he saw like a shrunken head. And he went and told his parents about it or someone else about it. And it got back to Ed. So then after that, he just stopped having anybody over. So I didn't get too much into the trial. It was just when they had his first trial, they pretty much said, you need to go to the mental hospital until you are fit to stand trial. And that is what they did. And that is why it took 10 years for his trial to even happen.
Crazy.
After he was sent to the hospital, the farm was left alone. They decided to sell off the farm, 195 acres. He had like different buildings, he had farm equipment, but then
imagine getting that house.
But like prior to that, because they were going to do that in March. So everything happened in November. But prior to that, it was such a spectacle that people were coming from all over to just get a glimpse and drive past the house. They would have 24/7 sheriffs and police watching the house to make sure no one got on the property, because there was thousands and thousands of people coming into town just so they could see the house. There was actually one point where someone that worked at the gas station just made up maps for everybody, because everybody would come in the gas station and be like, hey, do you know where this is? And he would just hand it out. Here you go, here you go, here you go. Because it was just ridiculous. I mean, can you imagine? And some people hated it, especially the Warden family and people who knew the victims. But some people thrived from it. They liked to tell stories and they wanted their name in the paper. They wanted their 15 minutes of fame. There was one woman that said she was in a relationship with him for 10 years or something like that. And they were going to get married, and all lies. Like, you get those people that, you know, they just want to be in the paper. They want to be in Time magazine.
So I was going to say though, like, obviously I feel really bad for the town and whatever, but I low key kind of want to drive by some places. I'm weird. Like, I would drive by the Ramsey house. I would drive by the Karen Reed house.
Well, and I'm the same way, but the way we have to think of it, and I've been thinking about this too. I went to Ed Gein's grave like 10 years ago, and I even took a couple pictures. But that's all I did. Like, we sat there, we're like, wow, this is Ed Gein's grave. But you also have to remember there's other people buried there that are involved in, like,
Right.
that are the victims. So just be respectful, you know?
Their families. Yeah.
That's the thing. There's so many people that aren't. I believe it was my nephew this October went during Halloween, and there was a lot of people there. And fine if you want to go, but you have to be respectful for all the graves around you, and don't take anything, don't be destructive. That's like their people's final resting place. And that's what you have to think
Right.
of. Because I went to Colonel Sanders' grave, but I don't do anything. I just, oh, it's a pretty grave. It's cool. It's a beautiful cemetery.
It's like you were talking about last episode we recorded about how the girls were taking selfies at the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah, don't.
Read the room.
Yeah, and we weren't taking selfies by the gravestones. I mean, there's people who dig up dirt, like weird. It's just be respectful and be
Yeah.
respectful for the people in the town.
Hmm.
People still have loved ones that were affected by this that live there.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and they still have to live their everyday life, so they don't need you clogging up the streets.
well, and that's one thing since this whole Netflix show came out, it's drawn new attention. And unfortunately, a lot of stuff in this series is wrong. So all these people that don't know the whole story are believing that he was killing people with chainsaws, and he wasn't. Yeah. Hopefully it passes soon and they don't have to deal with it much longer. But like I said, I mean, I've done stuff like that too.
If you do it respectfully, it's going to happen.
So the book I read, which was actually very good, Deviant by Harold Shifter, he recently did an interview with someone and they said, well, how much of the docuseries is accurate? He's like, it's like 90% false. It's bad. Because
And
yeah, to me, that's the only thing that is upsetting
they're
because
sensationalizing it to make a buck on it, and that sucks.
mhm, it just was so embellished. Even though Ed Gein was real, the show's not. So in March, when they decided to auction off all his farm equipment and buildings, the auction was supposed to be March 30th. So the inspection started on the 23rd, and they were going to start charging people 50 cents ahead to just go to the farm. But the people in town were like, they got to make money. I get it. But the people in town were like, now we have all these people just coming just to see it. It's like a tourist attraction, which upset a lot of the townspeople. So on March 20th, the Gein farmhouse actually burnt down. So 3 days before people were supposed to come and check out the property and everything, there was a fire. And people still came,
Look at
but
the
like the
ashes.
barn to look at the ashes, but I guess there was still like farm equipment and everything was still there, but the actual house was burned to the ground and they never found out what caused the fire.
What do you think happened to how the house started on fire?
Oh, someone burnt it down. I think it was a couple of the townsmen decided to
We were like,
burn
I'm
it
tired
down.
of this shit.
I'm
Yeah.
tired of it. Like, it's got to go. So when Ed found out about the fire, he was in the mental institution or whatever, and they came and they told him about it. They're like, Ed, farmhouse just burnt down. Everything's gone. And he said, just as well.
Fucking
Just as well.
weirdo. Do you think that's his lack of education where he just knows these 4 phrases? But he was well read, so that can't be it.
Everybody said he was thriving at the mental institution. He had friends. He talked to people. Like,
His
it
element.
sounded like he liked being there. He would open up a little bit more to people when he was there. So I think it was just he was on the right meds and
Makes me sad because if somebody
it
would have
like,
caught that at age 8,
yeah, I'm sure taking meds for a mental problem was sin. Augusta, yeah,
what's worse, talking to a harlot or taking mental health pills?
yeah,
I don't know.
freaking nut job. But it turned out that once the auction was done, the total farm itself was sold for $3,883 to a Sun Prairie real estate developer who I believe did nothing with the land. I think they just planted trees and stuff.
43,000
Yeah, for
for a
193
190
acres.
acre farm. That's bananas. Okay.
Yeah. The biggest bidding war was 14 people were bidding for his 1949 maroon sedan where he would carry the bodies. And that sold for $760. And it was bought by a man named Bunny Gibbons. And his goal was to take the car to the county fairs and charge everybody 25 cents. And he called it the Ed Gein Ghoul car and put like a dead body, like a fake mannequin in the back. And yeah, just freaking idiot.
Class people.
Yeah. So he started doing that. And then, fun fact, it got to the Washington County Fair and they put a stop to it. The sheriff came and said, get your fucking ghoul car out of Washington County. So all the other county fairs were like canceling. Yeah, we don't come here, don't come here, don't come here. So he's like, well, if you don't want it in Wisconsin, I'm going to take it down to Illinois. And I don't know, no one really heard much from Bunny Gibbons after that. So Ed Gein was in the Central State Hospital in Waupun from 1957 to 1968 when they decided that he was fit to stand trial. So in November of 68, after 10 years, he went on trial for just Bernice Worden. And it lasted about a week. And then they found him guilty on first-degree murder. But the judge immediately declared not guilty by reason of insanity because he was not sane at the time of the crime. But he was never charged for Mary Hogan's.
How her head was in the damn house.
Yeah, he was never charged for Mary Hogan's and he was never charged for grave robbing. Also, another fun fact. So, Ed Gein is the only serial killer who has successfully pleaded insanity in his case.
So what happens after that? They send him back to the mental hospital? Like they don't let him out in the streets, right?
So they sent him to the mental hospital in the Central State. Then in the 70s, they sent him to the Mendota Mental Hospital. And then in the late 70s, his health started declining. And then July 26th of 1984, he died at the age of 77 in the Mendota Mental Hospital due to respiratory failure related to lung cancer, like breathing in all that embalming fluid.
Yeah, the formaldehyde, right?
And then he was laid to rest back at the Plainfield Cemetery, right in between his mom and dad.
So, but that's kind of fucked up, right? Because that's the same grave sites that he would go rob.
Yeah. And another thing too, so he admitted to robbing 9 graves. He said he attempted more, but some were unsuccessful. So he's successfully robbed 9 graves. They only exhumed 2, and both graves did not have bodies in them, and they never exhumed the other 7.
So that bothers me on a lot of points. So you exhumed 2, but then you still didn't charge him with the grave robbing. That pisses me off. And then if I'm the family member of Sally Jane, I want to know if she's still in the ground or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. He let them know which graves, and they could probably figure it out because most of the graves he would rob were women, his moms.
What's the time span that he did this? So he killed the 2 people and robbed the 9 graves.
I don't know when exactly he started robbing the graves. I think he tried and then didn't and then was successful. I would say 10 years. So
that shit in the house for 10 years?
I don't even think he knows. I don't think he even told anybody.
And a lot of these books and stuff that you read, Were these doctors that would interview him while he was in the mental hospital, or did they have lawyers, or was it a combo? Or
He had a lawyer. He had William Belter from Watoma was his lawyer. And yeah, the district attorney would just Keelan or something like that. He interviewed him. So yeah, many people interviewed him. And when he was in that mental institution, they did every kind of test you can to him. He had brain scans and he was poked and prodded and ink blot tests and so many. He just spent like a month doing different testing.
do you think you could sit across from a serial killer and interview them?
I would like to say yes, but I don't know. It depends on the serial killer.
I was gonna say, I think I could too, but I would need to know my exit plan.
Yeah, yeah. There would have to be like a big glass, inch
Yeah.
and a half thick glass in between us.
Fascinating how his brain worked. That's what is fascinating to me about this. Is, well, he had a fucked up childhood, but I always like to see where it went off the rails. Maybe.
Yeah, this guy didn't have a chance. It just was really sad. I wonder too, what if he never killed Henry and Henry lived? Like, I don't know. Would he still end up killing him?
Probably at some point, because like when you were talking about how he robbed all those graves and stuff, and then his mom's room was preserved, I feel like he thought he was doing the Lord's work, but in this case, the Lord is his mom, and like making all the harlots suffer
Yeah.
because that's what killed her. And
Mhm.
so I've got to make all of them live the worst life ever, even after death.
Yeah. And a lot of people speculated that he was necrophiliac, which he claims he never was.
You read my mind. I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, he claims he was never, he said he was a virgin until he died. He said he never had sex. He said because they smelled so bad.
But he painted the vulvas.
But but yeah, I don't know. You know, because at that point, why wouldn't he just say, yeah, I slept with him? Yeah.
He's admitting to everything else, right?
Honestly, I think he wouldn't because he thinks his mom would know.
Yeah. Or what if, see, we can speculate on shit that's closed.
Mm-hmm.
What if he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, right? Could he have been going
Mm-hmm.
through the personalities and just legitimately not think that he did that because he was checked out?
Yeah.
Whether it was a
Well,
necrophilia or killing his brother.
when he would say, like, oh, I don't remember, I was like, I don't remember. I was in a trance, or not, he didn't say trance, but he'd be like, and a lot of people thought too, well, that's bullshit. You weren't, you knew exactly what you were doing, especially the townspeople that actually knew him. They were like, he's lying.
I mean, maybe, but could you play the long con for what? It was like he was in that mental
30
asylum for like
years.
30 years.
No, I don't think he could.
Unless he started out not crazy and eventually made himself crazy just by being there and pretending. But that's a
Yeah.
long time to pretend to be crazy.
Yeah. 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 I think once he was like in a stable place that he was able to get help, he needed that.
Hmm. And it made him semi-human,
Mm-hmm.
which can't believe I'm
One,
going to say I feel bad for Ed Gein, but I feel bad for Ed Gein.
and I have sympathy for him. I think he had a pretty fucked up childhood.
Hmm.
But a lot of people did, and they didn't end up robbing graves. Any other questions?
No, but I do want to know. Well, actually, I have two just final thought questions for you. But before I do that, I just want to know if you had any other final thoughts on it.
So the book I read, Deviant, was awesome. I did watch another show. It was called Psycho, The Lost Tapes of Ed, and that was very insightful too. One thing that was sad was they interviewed Sheriff Schley's daughter, and she talked about like, oh yeah, we lived in the courthouse, and when Ed was there, and the reporters were constantly on the stairs, and it was just constant. And she's like, when my mom made all the meals for him, and we would take it down to him. And I was like, what?
The fuck?
You let your 11-year-old daughter
What
take
is wrong with the 50s and 60s?
I was like, yeah, that was funny. I was like, wow.
I wrote that one down because I knew like the little bits and pieces of this case, but I never knew like all of it together. So I learned some things today.
Well, and the good thing too is you get to hear Ed Gein's voice, which is nothing like the guy who portrays him on the Netflix show.
Interesting.
But it was good.
So I have to ask you, what was your most, I don't know if I want to say interesting, craziest fact about this whole case?
I guess I never realized what he actually was convicted for, like just Bernice Warden's. I was very surprised by that.
All right. And then my fun question, not fun question, but I'm very curious what you would say. Speaking of the items in his home, what do you think was the most disturbing?
Most disturbing. Oh gosh. Sometimes I think the suits, like the leggings,
Yeah.
that's pretty disturbing. I always thought it would be like the skull bowl. That's gross too, but to actual like skin someone and then sew it together. I can't see him sitting there like cross stitching. Gotta get out the
his little
sewing kit.
and then the needle gets cramped.
Yeah. How many times he pricked himself.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Yeah. What about you?
The organs is weird and interesting to me. Like I'm kind of like, was there a Jeffrey Dahmer before there was a Jeffrey Dahmer? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The suit for sure, but the faces did it for me too, because that's what Texas Chainsaw Massacre wore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always have nightmares about that.
Yeah. So he would like pretend like he was someone else, put a face on, and wonder if he'd like talk like in a woman's voice, and it's just weird.
Do you think he like danced around?
I don't think he was much of a dancer.
No. No,
He did want to
disturbing.
take Bernice Warden roller skating at the new roller rink in Hancock.
Oh, okay.
That is
Okay.
true. But in the monster story, they said that they actually went roller skating, but she would be like, "No, I'm good," and he'd be like, "I'm just kidding, anyways." No, Eddie.
Oh, Eddie. I also secretly wanted them to call him E.T.
E.T.
He's kind of like an alien. Yeah, Eddie Edward Theodore. ETG. Hey. All right. Thanks for joining us on our first SWAC Gets serial. So this was super duper interesting. And Kristy, you did such a great job. So amazing.
Thank you.
Told a great story.
Please let us know if you liked it.
Yeah.
If you didn't, just don't say anything.
Would really love to hear your feedback. Do you want more of them? Do you want less of them? Are there ones that you would love to hear us do? And you're like, oh, I thought you guys only did unsolved stuff. No, give us your favorite lesser known serial killer.
Let us know.
Well, thank you, listeners. We look forward to seeing you here, same place, same time in 2 weeks.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show today. We genuinely appreciate any and all support. We would love if you would please subscribe, like, comment, or download on any of your favorite platforms that you go to for podcasts. Did today's episode leave you with more to say or have a theory that you didn't discuss or even a case that you'd love to hear us talk about? Head on over to our Facebook discussion group. You could search SWAC Pod, SWACPOD discussion group, and leave any suggestions, comments, etc. there. To feel a little bit more comfortable via email, we can also be reached at swacpod@gmail.com. That's SWACPOD@gmail.com. Any and all feedback is incredibly helpful to us. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep speculating wildly.